Dear ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in life when each of us must decide whether we will continue living under the light of someone else's fire, or finally gather the courage to create a flame of our own. A borrowed flame may offer temporary warmth, but it can never teach you how to survive the cold. It may illuminate your path for a moment, but it will never show you the strength hidden within your own hands. Depending on others for motivation is one of the silent traps that holds countless people back from discovering their true power. When you rely on someone else's flame to feel inspired, you unintentionally place your life, your progress, and your emotional strength in their hands. It means your energy rises when they encourage you and collapses when they are absent. This dependency creates a cycle where you constantly wait. Wait for someone to push you, wait for someone to validate you, wait for someone to remind you of your potential. But waiting is the slowest killer of dreams. Every moment spent depending on another person to move you is a moment lost in which you could have been building yourself. When you look at someone who appears strong, disciplined, or successful, it is natural to admire them. But admiration becomes dangerous when it turns into emotional dependence. You begin to believe that you cannot rise unless they lift you, that you cannot improve unless they guide you, that you cannot begin unless they give you permission. This mindset keeps your inner flame weak, fragile, and unstable. It flickers only when someone else blows air into it. Master Shi Heng Yi teaches that true strength comes from within, and anything built on borrowed energy will always fall apart the moment the source disappears. Think about what happens when you rely on external sources of motivation, like a motivational speaker, a friend, a mentor, or even a partner. You feel energized for a few hours, maybe a few days, and then that spark fades. Why? Because the fire wasn't yours. It was someone else's passion, someone else's discipline, someone else's wisdom temporarily lighting up your darkness. Motivation that comes from the outside is like a candle in the wind. It burns beautifully for a moment, but disappears the moment the environment changes. But when you ignite your own flame, something extraordinary begins to happen. You stop waiting for good days because you learn how to create them. You stop waiting for encouragement because you learn how to speak strength to yourself. You stop waiting for the right mood because you learn how to move even when you don't feel ready. You become the one who fuels yourself, and this is the moment life begins to shift. Your actions no longer depend on external inspiration, but on internal commitment. The world around you may change, people may come and go, but your fire stays alive because you are the one tending to it. Depending on others for motivation also creates another hidden danger. You begin to give people power they should never have. When they praise you, you rise. When they criticize you, you fall. When they leave, you break. Your emotional state becomes attached to their opinions and presence, and you lose your independence. You end up living in the shadow of others instead of standing in your own light. True power is born when you understand that while others can inspire you, they should never be the reason you move. They can spark an idea, but they cannot carry you through the journey. That is your responsibility, your challenge, and your opportunity. Imagine a tree that grows only when the sun shines, but collapses every time clouds pass by. Such a tree could never survive long enough to bear fruit. In the same way, a person who grows only when encouraged, praised, or pushed from the outside can never reach their fullest potential. Growth must be consistent, strength must be cultivated, discipline must be built day by day, especially on the days when nobody is watching, nobody is cheering, and nobody is supporting. Those are the moments when your inner flame is truly tested. Do you keep going, or do you wait again for someone to motivate you? When you choose to take ownership of your energy, you transform from a seeker into a creator. You no longer chase after people who inspire you. You become someone who inspires yourself. You no longer say, "I wish I had their strength." Instead, you say, "I am building my own." You realize that the ability to motivate yourself is the greatest power you can develop because it stays with you no matter who comes or who leaves. It becomes a force that guides you, lifts you, and protects you. Relying on others makes you feel temporarily powerful. Relying on yourself makes you permanently unstoppable. When you understand that every action, every habit, every thought is a log you place into your own fire, you stop looking outside for permission and begin turning inward for fuel. This is how true inner fire is born, not by borrowing light, but by becoming the source of it. Strength, discipline, and purpose cannot be handed to you by another person, no matter how wise. Powerful or inspiring they may be, these qualities must be built within you through the repeated experiences of facing discomfort, embracing challenge, and rising after every fall. People often look at someone who is disciplined or successful and assume that some external force made them that way. A mentor, a teacher, a lucky break. But the truth is far less glamorous and far more empowering. Their fire was built one small effort at a time, one difficult day at a time, one choice at a time. Nobody can give you the ability to persist. Nobody can install discipline into your life like a software program. It must be earned through practice, dedication, and countless private battles that no one ever sees. We live in a world where many expect shortcuts, quick fixes, instant motivation, immediate transformation. But real growth cannot be rushed, borrowed, or copied. It must be forged like steel, heated, hammered, shaped, and strengthened through pressure. Every person who stands out today once stood where you stand now, uncertain, inexperienced, untested. What made them different was not some special gift, but their willingness to go through the process of building themselves. They understood that effort is the price of entry into any meaningful life. Without effort, there is no depth, no maturity, no power. Everything remains shallow, temporary, and easily destroyed. When you look at someone like Master Shi Heng Yi, you may see the calmness, the clarity, and the mastery he displays. But what you don't see are the years of early mornings, the hours of daily training, the struggles, the doubts, and the perseverance that built that mastery. You don't see the failures that taught him resilience, or the sacrifices that shaped his discipline. His flame shines brightly not because someone lit it for him, but because he dedicated his life to tending it. This is the universal law of mastery. Anyone can rise, but no one can rise without work. The journey of building your own flame demands that you step into discomfort willingly. Growth rarely happens when life is easy. It happens when you push yourself beyond the limits of what feels comfortable. It happens when you complete the task even when you don't feel like it, when you show up even when you're tired, when you choose discipline over distraction. These choices may seem small in the moment, but over time they shape your character, sharpen your mind, and strengthen your spirit. Every drop of effort you invest becomes fuel for your flame, and unlike borrowed fire, this flame grows stronger the more you feed it. There will be days when the effort feels heavy, when progress seems invisible, and when your mind tries to convince you that quitting is easier. On those days, many people search again for external motivation, hoping someone else will carry them through. But this is where real transformation is born, not in the easy moments, but in the silent battles where you rely only on your own determination. Every time you push through without help, your inner flame becomes more stable, more reliable, more powerful. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to recognize your own strength. It is important to understand that building your flame is not about grand actions or dramatic breakthroughs. It is about consistency. It is about honoring your commitments to yourself even when no one is watching. Discipline grows quietly. Progress grows slowly. But these slow and quiet steps eventually lead to extraordinary change. The person who trains a little every day becomes strong. The person who practices patience daily becomes calm. The person who chooses focus over distraction becomes unstoppable. These qualities are not inherited, they are cultivated. And there is something incredibly liberating about earning your strength. When you build your own flame, nobody can take it from you. You no longer fear losing motivation because you know how to generate it. You no longer fear challenges because you have proven to yourself that you can endure them. You no longer fear failure because you have learned that failure is simply part of the crafting process. You rise not because someone lifts you, but because you have trained yourself to rise. This is why effort is sacred. It transforms you in ways that nothing else can. It makes you self-reliant, resilient, grounded, and capable. It turns potential into reality, ideas into action, dreams into achievements. It reveals the truth that greatness is not given, it is grown. And the soil in which it grows is your discipline, your persistence, and your willingness to show up regardless of how you feel. When you understand that your flame can only be built through your own effort, you stop searching for easy paths and start embracing the right ones. You begin to see challenges not as obstacles but as opportunities to strengthen your inner fire. And every time you choose effort over excuses, you carve a new layer of strength into your character. This is the path to mastery. This is the path to true inner power. And this is the path that belongs entirely to you. Your inner flame does not need to outshine the flames of others. It only needs to shine with its own authenticity. One of the greatest sources of suffering in modern life is comparison, a constant measuring of your worth against the achievements, appearance, or progress of others. This comparison weakens your inner flame, not because others are stronger, but because your attention shifts away from nurturing your own growth and becomes trapped in observing theirs. When you focus too much on how brightly someone else burns, you forget to tend to the spark that waits inside you, asking only for your patience, your consistency, and your care. The world tells you that you must be the best, that you must rise higher than others, that you must compete to prove your value. But this mindset creates insecurity rather than confidence. It pushes people into chasing goals that don't belong to them, adopting lifestyles that don't fit them, and pretending to be someone they are not. Master Shi Heng Yi often reminds us that the purpose of life is not to become superior to others, but to become superior to your former self. When you let this understanding settle into your heart, your flame becomes calm, steady, and real. You stop trying to impress. You stop trying to prove. You stop trying to imitate. You begin to simply be. Your flame may start small, just a quiet glow of consistency, a gentle warmth of determination. And that is perfectly enough. Every great fire begins as a fragile spark. The size of your flame does not determine your potential. Your commitment to nurturing it does. A small fire that is tended daily will one day grow into a steady, unwavering force. But a large fire that was never truly yours may burn brightly for a short time and then collapse into ash. Authenticity is the foundation of all lasting strength. It is better to grow slowly in truth than to appear great in imitation. When you focus on your own flame, you begin to realize that comparison is not only unnecessary, it is meaningless. Everyone walks a different path. Everyone fights a different battle. Everyone carries different experiences that shape who they become. To compare your journey with someone else's is to compare different stories written on different pages. Some people begin with more resources, some with fewer. Some experience early success, others bloom later in life. But blooming later does not make the flower any less beautiful. What matters is that it blooms at all. The moment you stop comparing, you open the door to genuine peace. You begin to recognize that your flame has its own rhythm, its own timing, its own nature. Some fires burn fast and bright, fueled by urgency and ambition. Others burn slow and deep, fueled by patience and reflection. Neither is better than the other. Each is simply different. What destroys inner peace is the belief that your flame must match or exceed someone else's. This belief causes anxiety, pressure, and self-doubt, all of which suffocate your flame instead of feeding it. Instead, imagine tending a fire in a quiet forest at night. The flames rise at their own pace, shaped by the wood you gather and the wind around you. You do not rush it. You do not compare it to fires burning in distant mountains. You simply care for it, feed it, and watch it grow. This is how your inner flame should be treated, with patience, attention, and acceptance. Comparison is like pouring water on that fire. It cools your confidence and dims your light. Authenticity, on the other hand, is like offering dry wood. It strengthens the flame. When you accept yourself fully, your fire becomes stable. When you understand your own strengths and weaknesses, you burn with clarity. When you move according to your own values, your flame becomes unshakable. And the beautiful thing is this: once your flame is stable, its light naturally expands. You do not need to push. You do not need to force. You do not need to compete. Growth becomes a natural consequence of being true to yourself. Many people fear that if they stop comparing themselves to others, they will lose motivation, but the opposite is true. Comparison-based motivation is shallow and short-lived. It pushes you forward out of insecurity rather than vision. It fuels you with pressure instead of purpose. When your motivation comes from within, from your desires, your dreams, your values, it becomes sustainable and satisfying. You begin to grow not to impress others, but to express your true self. And something profound happens when you embrace your own flame. You start appreciating the flames of others without feeling threatened by them. You see their strengths as inspiration, not competition. You admire their journey without questioning your own. This mindset brings you freedom. Freedom from jealousy, from insecurity, from the exhausting desire to prove your worth. Your inner flame becomes a source of stability instead of stress. So remember, the goal is not to burn brighter than others. The goal is to burn in a way that reflects who you truly are. Your flame may not light up the entire world, but it can illuminate your path, warm your heart, and guide your steps. And that is enough. All you must do is tend to it with care, let it grow at its own pace, and allow it to become the steady, genuine light that it was always meant to be. Inspiration is a beautiful force, but it was never meant to be a place where you stay. It is meant to be a spark, a starting point, a gentle push that points you toward action. Yet many people become attached to the feeling of inspiration, rather than the work that must follow it. They listen to speeches, watch motivational videos, read powerful words, and feel an emotional surge, but that surge fades the moment the content ends. Why? Because they allow inspiration to remain an emotion instead of transforming it into a behavior. They allow it to be a temporary high instead of a foundation for change. Inspiration by itself cannot change your life unless you convert it into daily action. It is easy to admire the wisdom of great teachers, the discipline of great athletes, the courage of great leaders. But admiration can become a trap when it replaces your own effort. People sometimes become addicted to watching others succeed, as if observing someone else's journey could somehow replace walking their own. They admire so intensely that they forget to move. They listen so much that they forget to act. This emotional attachment to external sources of inspiration becomes a silent dependency, a comfort zone disguised as progress. It feels good, but it leads nowhere. Master Shi Heng Yi teaches that inspiration should awaken you, not hold you. It should open your eyes, not replace your steps. When you rely too heavily on outside motivation, you create a habit of needing to be reawakened again and again. You look for new videos, new teachers, new quotes to lift you because you haven't trained yourself to lift your own spirit. You begin to believe that unless you feel inspired, you cannot move. This belief is powerful and dangerous because life will not always provide inspiration on demand. Some days are silent, heavy, or filled with uncertainty. On those days, if you depend on external sparks, your flame will remain unlit. True transformation begins when inspiration becomes a doorway, not a destination. When you hear a powerful message, and instead of simply feeling something, you decide to do something. When you take the emotion of the moment and turn it into a step, even a small one, that step is the difference between those who admire greatness and those who build it. You must use inspiration as a tool, not a crutch. A tool helps you move. A crutch prevents you from learning to stand. When you treat inspiration as a tool, you become selective and intentional. You seek wisdom not for the rush of emotion, but for the guidance it offers. You don't chase inspiration, you apply it. To understand this, imagine inspiration as a flame offered by someone else. It can light your candle, but it cannot keep it burning. If you never add wood, never protect your fire from the wind, never feed it with consistent action, the flame goes out. Many people collect sparks from everywhere, speeches, books, conversations, but their lives remain unchanged because they never nurture those sparks into steady fire. If you want your light to last, you must learn the discipline of tending your own flame. Inspiration can also become a distraction. People feel inspired and mistake that feeling for progress. They believe that feeling motivated is the same as being transformed. But transformation is not emotional. It is behavioral. It is built through repetition, through showing up when you feel nothing, through doing the hard things that inspiration alone cannot force you to do. The gym doesn't care if you watched 3 motivational videos before arriving. A canvas won't paint itself because you felt emotionally charged. Your future doesn't unfold because you felt moved. It unfolds because you moved. When you detach from relying on inspiration, you gain freedom. You no longer wait for the right mood, the perfect message, or the ideal environment. You learn to act regardless of how you feel. You start seeing action as the creator of emotion, rather than waiting for emotion to create action. This is the secret of disciplined individuals. They do not depend on inspiration, they depend on habits. They do not rely on feeling ready, they rely on being committed. Their fire stays alive, not because the world constantly gives them sparks, but because they have trained their hands to strike their own. Another profound shift happens when you stop depending on inspiration. You learn to extract meaning from experience rather than needing others to teach you. You begin noticing lessons in your failures, strength in your struggles, clarity in your mistakes. Every day becomes a teacher. Every challenge becomes a teaching moment. You are no longer a passive receiver of motivation. You become an active creator of wisdom. Your flame becomes wiser, stronger, and more personal because it is built from your life, not someone else's guidance. And yet, this does not mean inspiration is useless. It is incredibly powerful, but only when used correctly. Inspiration should be like wind in your sails, not the entire boat. It can help you move faster, but it cannot replace the structure, the craft, or the direction of your journey. Let it spark ideas, awaken ambition, or remind you of who you can become. But let the work be done by your hands. Let the responsibility belong to your spirit. Let the discipline rise from your own choices, not from the temporary emotional wave that follows a moving message. When you shift from depending on others to inspiring yourself, you build something unshakable. You no longer need to wait for motivation to strike because you know how to ignite your own flame. You no longer chase emotional highs because you are grounded in purpose. You no longer collapse when inspiration fades because action has taken its place as your foundation. And that foundation is where true inner strength is born. There comes a time in every person's life when they must realize that the journey of self-growth is deeply personal and no one else can walk it for them. Others may walk beside you, guide you, encourage you, or inspire you, but the actual steps, the choices, the discipline required to move forward must come from your own will. Waiting for someone else to fuel your path keeps you stuck, and depending on others to carry your flame makes your inner strength fragile. You become like a traveler who waits for someone else to light the torch before entering a dark cave. But the truth is that the path does not reveal itself to those who wait. It reveals itself to those who move. Every person has moments in life where they feel lost, confused, or overwhelmed. During these times, it is natural to seek guidance. But guidance is not a replacement for action. It is only a direction. If you stand still with a map in your hands, no destination will come closer. The world is filled with wisdom, strategies, teachings, and advice, but none of it holds value unless it is activated through your own choices. The most powerful transformation begins not when you hear the right message, but when you apply it. The flame of self-growth stays alive through practice, not promises. Self-reliance does not mean rejecting help. It means not depending on it. It means understanding that even when someone gives you knowledge, motivation, or support, the responsibility to transform that energy into progress rests entirely on your shoulders. You cannot give this responsibility away. No teacher can meditate for you. No coach can discipline your mind for you. No mentor can override your excuses for you. You alone sit at the center of your choices, and every choice either strengthens or weakens your flame. There is a deep empowerment that comes from realizing that your life changes the moment you decide it does. You do not need permission to evolve. You do not need applause to continue. You do not need constant reminders to stay focused. The moment you accept that you are the keeper of your flame, you become the master of your path. You stop running to others for strength and begin cultivating it from within. Your inner world becomes your primary source of guidance, and your reliance shifts from external sources to internal resolve. One of the most profound truths is that the person you become is shaped more by your private decisions than your public declarations. Growth happens in the quiet moments when you choose discipline over distraction, when you choose effort over comfort, when you choose persistence over giving up. No one else sees these moments, and no one else can make these choices for you. These private victories accumulate and eventually become visible as confidence, wisdom, and mastery. The world only sees the outcome, but you know the effort that kept your flame alive. Walking your own path also means accepting that the journey will not always be easy. There will be days when the flame feels small, when motivation is low, when doubts whisper louder than courage. These moments are not signs that you are failing, they are signs that you are growing. Difficulty is not a punishment, it is the training ground of transformation. When you go through challenges without leaning on others to solve them for you, you develop resilience, a quality that cannot be borrowed or inherited. Resilience is learned only through facing your own battles. There is also a unique sense of freedom that comes from taking ownership of your flame. When you no longer expect others to keep you moving, you stop feeling disappointed when they don't. You stop feeling abandoned when they leave. You stop feeling discouraged when they fail to understand your vision. You realize that your path does not require approval, it requires commitment. You stop waiting for saviors and start becoming your own guide. This shift allows you to move forward with clarity, because your direction is no longer influenced by the expectations of others, but determined by your own inner compass. As you walk your path, you also begin to understand that other people are walking theirs too. And just as you cannot carry their flame, they cannot carry yours. Everyone has their own lessons to learn, their own mountains to climb, their own storms to endure. Respecting this truth helps you let go of the urge to compare, judge, or compete. Instead, you focus on building your flame with sincerity, knowing that the brightness of someone else's fire does not dim your own. When you honor your path, your growth becomes more authentic, steady, and meaningful. Your flame will evolve over time. At first, it may flicker uncertainly, easily shaken by fear or doubt. But with every step you take, with every choice you make that aligns with your growth, the flame strengthens. It becomes a trusted companion on your journey. It becomes a source of warmth when life feels cold, a guide when life feels dark, and a reminder of your strength when life feels heavy. This inner flame is not something others can build for you. It is something you must craft with patience, intention, and courage. And as you continue walking your path with ownership and responsibility, you eventually discover something profound. Your flame not only guides you, but it begins to inspire others without you even trying. People see your discipline, your consistency, your authenticity, and they feel encouraged to tend their own fire. But the difference is clear. They are inspired by your flame, not dependent on it. Because you built your power from within, you demonstrate to others that they can do the same. And this creates a ripple effect of strength that is genuine, sustainable, and deeply human.